Welcome to the 52nd episode of World's Greatest Dad, where we recap the last year of doing this podcast with some of our most notable highlights, and we ramble too. Hope you enjoy it.
Speaking. Good day.
I can't believe you robbed an excellent intro. We're all dressed up, looking sharp. P.S. It goes to show you, you don't need to spend big bucks to look sharp. Your tuxedo's from Amazon. This almost was from Nordstrom Rack. I bought it at Nordstrom, but I think this is one of the greatest clothing purchases ever. This cost me, like, with tax, $200. Which is nuts. Oh. And I guess, I don't know what you call it. It's like a navy tux. It's by far the best clothing purchase I've ever had. It also helps to get to a point where you can just buy off the rack. This was the year I had lost weight, and I was like, damn, dude, this works. So, and it still fits. Go dry January. Go not spending a lot of money on Texas. Go World's Greatest Dad for our... You realize this is actually our 51st episode, right? The count's off. When I was doing my YouTube analytics, when it said episode 30, it was actually 31. But it doesn't matter, because in some ways, there was no episode 0, so we should celebrate.
I don't think that's right. I'll do the math, but for whatever, fact checkers are on this, and we'll get them working. This will be our 52nd episode. Whether it is
52nd. That's right. Oh, I thought you meant it was the 50th. The 50th.
No, this is our 52nd. And there's a reason for that, Ollie. And first, I will address the elephant in the room. I'm wearing a purple tuxedo.
Sharp.
Is that an elephant? Is this what? No?
I think it's sharp.
Thank you. Thanks for outing my that I got it from Mr. Bezos. Just real.
It's hard, man. Let's look. Like I try and do the right thing. We try and do the right thing, but we still live in a world where, the batteries come so easily. Let's just, Yeah. Oh, Listen, it's crazy too.
I have a way of getting back at him, which I'm not going to reveal on this podcast, and I think he feels it. I think he every now and then. I think there's a twinge. I think he knows. He knows that karma will take Mr. Bezos down. But we're not talking about, evil billionaires. We're talking about fatherhood, being dads, celebrating this momentous occasion that we have created for ourselves. And why? Why are we celebrating? We didn't win a Golden Globe. We didn't even win a Webby. But we showed up. And that's where the bar is. And I just want to give some context for the listener. Thank you for, by the way, being with us all year, listener. Singular. We know you change from week to week, but we appreciate you being here.
Our wives listen.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a pass the baton. Really, we'll pass it to someone else. We'll listen next week. But we appreciate you. And, Ollie and I had one goal when we started this podcast.
We did.
Yeah, it was to do 52 episodes.
Oh, you're right. Neil with the plan. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. You were like, if you're going to do a podcast, and, spoiler alert, this is classic Neil. He goes, listen, I talked to the guy WME, and he's like, you got to do 52. You got to crank out 52. I was like, game, let's do it. Here I am, a little older, a little more gray. Like, oh, what have I done? Actually, it's pretty amazing because...
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. We did it, and I think the byproduct was when we started, we were like, I don't know, I'll try and get Jeff Morrow. And then we realized, not only was it more than possible and feasible, but people constantly feel like they're so grateful to be on, and you realize this actually, there's some meaning behind this versus us being so desperate to chase the next thing, which was the real origin story of Ollie and Neil. Yeah, this will work, yeah, this is a slam dunk, let's do it.
What happened was we were trying to write Good Will Hunting 2, but nobody would bite, and we found out that Robin Williams was no longer available, unfortunately, and we were like, "What are we doing? Let's do a fatherhood podcast." And that's essentially what if I think I should just because I always tell the origin story of this pod. I think I should just make stuff up from now on. What do you think? That'd be more fun.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
So we've done 52 episodes, and we're here to celebrate that. And lest you think, oh, why do you deserve to celebrate? Well, gosh darn it, it's important to celebrate the small wins because that's what life is about. Because I'm not going to win an Olympic gold, okay? I'll probably never have an Oscar on my shelf or an Emmy or even a daytime Emmy, Ollie. And so what am I going to do? I'm just going to throw in the towel? No, I'm going to be the best darn fatherhood podcaster I can be, just like I'm trying to be the best dad I can be. And not in a boomer way where they're like, we did the best we can. Because it's like, did you? I think maybe you could have done a little bit better. But that's okay. That's not what we're unpacking here. This show is about showing up, being present, learning, growing, not gatekeeping, by the way, which is a thing that the kids say, which was basically my job for 15 years, being a gatekeeper of media.
That's true.
That all went to shit. So we're here to share and learn and grow and have a good time. Honestly, like, it's all that, kind of Pollyanna stuff, but also to, like, do it in a fun way. I cannot stand the podcasters and the experts who are just like, hey, dads, hey, daddies, hey, and they're just, like, so earnest. Hey, we joke. We're here to have fun. We're here to be our full selves, but also be our dad selves and have a space to do that because it's important.
I feel like, too, when you go, hey, this fatherhood thing, we're just kind of figuring it out. Generally, even with, frankly, people with very resumes and accomplishments and things that you're like that are like daytime Emmys on the mantle, you still realize like that's just like that one little shiny. That's when you smile for the family portrait, right? And then there's the reality, and the reality has always been there, even with the boomers. P.S. I think Boomer Neil needs to be the next big TikTok character. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's huge. Right along with dude watching the Turning Point. Anything Turning Point. I think that could be your new thing too. That's anything Turning Point.
Do you like my voice that I turn on for
it's actually pretty good, actually. Yeah, it is.
Anytime I play a Republican character on social media, it's just, well, I was saying there. Hey,
I feel like he's more than just a Republican. You know what I mean? I think he's just more of an isolationist, or someone who's just like, is really selective about their media. Like, I don't trust that channel. It's Disney. Don't trust it. You know what I mean? So,
you woke.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, lest we forget, Neil is just another Jew from New Jersey. You know what I mean? Despite his like, let's be honest, like you could have been on Mission Impossible as one of Tom Cruise's other faces. Like, oh, the mask. Yeah, you know what I mean? Oh, you would have liked this. Randomly. Oh, so Dad was alone this weekend. Heath had a big volleyball tourney. I was too cheap to pull the trigger on getting a plane ticket to St. Louis in the middle of February. So stayed at home last night, sitting there watching dinner. I was like, I'll just turn something on. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. True fun fact, I've never seen it before. It's like I kind of felt like I had seen it, but I actually hadn't seen it. Tone Loc was up in there. Amazing. I forgot Tone Loc was in movies.
I watched that at a very young age, and I used to be able to quote it. There's probably, well, I don't know if it exists anymore, but there was at one point VHS of me doing an Ace Ventura monologue as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid. We'll have to, go into the archives. But it took a long time for me to know what was happening in one of those early scenes where the woman didn't have payment to pay Ace Ventura Pet Detective. And all you see is his torso, and he's kind of moving around, and he's saying, "Friendly around here." Yeah. And I just was so confused. It was a gap of I just didn't know what was happening, and I never knew. And then, at some point, way too late, it clicked for me. Okay, I think I understand how Mr. Ventura, the pet detective, was paid by the woman who did not have payment.
So I'm gonna pull this up, but I'm pretty sure Ace Ventura was a PG-13 movie, and you saw it when you were 6,
Maybe 7, maybe
multiple
8,
times.
I mean, but again, that's like showing I have an 8-year-old. I would not let her watch Ace Ventura. And you know why? Do you know why, Ollie? Because in the
I
world's
don't know
greatest
why.
dad.
Oh, yeah, you set it up, but you also just threw your dad under the bus. I've confirmed it. It is a PG-13 film, and you watch it enough times where you were doing the monologue, so that wasn't like an accidental.
Yeah.
Wow, wow,
90s
that's
were crazy,
impressive.
man. Hey, should I do the world's greatest dad theme song that we still haven't really landed on now that we're 52 eps in?
Yeah, might as well. I mean, we're
All
in a
right, let's try
tuxedo
this.
for crying out loud. Let me get this.
World's greatest dad. World's greatest dad. They're the world's greatest dads. How's that?
I mean, you do remind me of your history of doing musicals, so yeah, you could carry a tune. You
Well,
know?
all right, you give me a
Yeah.
style and I'll do one. Should I do it like Green Day?
I can really
World's
look at you
greatest
more.
dad. They're the world's greatest dads. Hey. No?
That was more of an impression, but
Okay.
it wasn't. Yeah,
All right. Here's the thing. The days are long. The years are short.
they really
You
are.
only get 18 summers. Talk about that. Let's talk about how you're doing with a 14-year-old. You got 4 summers left, my friend. 4 summers,
I
5 summers,
know.
5 summers.
So I will tell you, probably the timing of this could not have been better because of this year. Like, essentially, we started this at the second half of seventh grade, which pretty much takes us to like the Wonder Years, a very important show for me. It actually gave me an early lesson on, the preciousness of life itself about those Wonder Years. Still think one of the best television endings of all time. Satisfying, meaningful, poetic. Am I right?
That ending, can I spoil it? I mean, it was like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think you can spoil the ending to the Wonder Years
I
in
so it's
2026.
it's Daniel Stern doing a voiceover for Kevin Arnold, which I do remember. By the way, this is like my safe space to talk about Family Guy because I can't talk about it in my house. Did I ever tell you that? When my
No.
wife and I first started dating, she was like, I'd be like, "Oh, it's like that Guy. You ever see that Family Guy? Oh, do you remember that Family Guy?" And at some point, a couple months in, I think she said, "Hey, I've never seen that Family Guy. I don't want to see that Family Guy. Please stop talking to me about Family Guy." Anyway, I did, and now we have 2 kids, and we've been married for like 12, we've been together 12, 13 years. Anyways, so but okay, so there's a Family Guy, Ollie.
Yeah.
Um, where what were we just talking about?
Dude, I can't believe you. We were talking about the freaking Wonder Years. You go into this
Wonder
Family
Years.
Guy
Oh,
thing.
he goes.
And yes, the Family Guy thing was a good story, but my God, we have a
Okay,
lot
so
in
Wonder
common.
Years.
Keep
No,
going.
no, I actually, oh my God, it wasn't about the Wonder Years, but it does apply. It was about How I Met Your Mother. They're like, how come that guy turns into Bob Saget? But I always thought the same thing. Why does he turn into Daniel Stern? But I guess Fred Savage was too young, so they actually did have to have an adult voice be the narrator, and then you're just kind of locked in. So Daniel
Yeah,
Stern's the voice of older Kevin,
right.
and I remember I'm like getting the chills. Honestly, like it gives me like This Is Us chills. Like you know how like This Is Us, like do you remember that show with Sterling K. Brown? Made me cry every single time. Um, they do like a montage of like what happens to them in the future, and you learn
Hmm.
like Dan Lauria's character, his dad. literally getting the chills. Dies, has a heart
Hmm.
attack.
Yeah.
Um, it's also that like irony, that like dramatic irony of like you're watching this. They're fucking characters, but you're watching like the dad like at like a Memorial Day parade, and like he doesn't know he's dead, but he's dead because we're listening to Daniel Stern tell us in the future.
Yeah.
And then he tells this story about like Winnie went away and
Yeah.
I wrote her
Yeah.
letters every single day. And then when she finally came back from Paris, I think I met her at the airport with my wife and son.
Yeah. 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 It was funny because it was like it felt like, especially as we progressed into what would become like just landmark television endings, right? Of the 2000s, like, the ambiguousness, the brilliance slash anger of the ending of Sopranos, something like Breaking Bad, on it goes. The great run of TV in the mid to late aughts, really. But, you look at Wonder Years and it was like, if you think about that ending, it was simultaneously classic and satisfying, but not the stereotypical Hollywood happy ending. I think it was just, and actually, like, the show gave you just a little bit of that taste of the cough syrup medicine. Like, yep, this is why this quote felt real. Even though it was 90s network television, it wasn't like, the stereotypical 50s Ozzie and Harriet, like, well, I'm sure lucky I've got my family. Think I'll just kick up, light
It,
myself up a Winston.
in some senses, and this might be a long walk here, but I'll take it. It was a little bit like Fiddler on the Roof, because here's this dad who I always kind of associate him, by the way, with like Earl from Dinosaurs, this like working stiff who's just trying to bring home a paycheck,
Sure, you're right. Good
loves
call.
his family, but he's a little bit gruff. That was like kind of that generation. That was like my grandfather too, like my grandfather
Sure.
used to work nights, come home, eat his dinner in the morning, have a glass of scotch, and then go to bed at like as my dad was leaving for school, right? But I think, look, he was contending with this daughter who was like a hippie, who just totally didn't fit the values, and like
Hmm.
these boys who were a little bit soft, maybe
Yeah.
compared to like the tough upbringing he clearly had,
Hmm.
and I think that's again not so dissimilar from our childhoods of like trying to create this bridge between generations and father and son and mother and daughter and mother and son and father and daughter and finding the common ground. And so I'm going to use this as a segue, Ollie, because this is a parenting podcast and not a TV podcast. Can you believe it?
We're talking about a family show.
That's true. It's true.
It's a show about a
Um,
family, about dads.
when did you kind of realize that, how many episodes into this 52 episode podcast so far and counting did you realize like, oh yeah, I think we're actually doing this. This is like a thing. Like, when did this show become meaningful to you? And by the way, as I say to the guests, no wrong answers. You could say, hey, I still don't give a shit about this show. Like,
Yeah.
be honest.
Well, in all honesty, we started this thing going, oh my God, this is totally going to work. Like in our old TV mindsets, like, yeah, this idea is a slam dunk. And then you kind of hold your breath and wait and see. And I think part of it, there was a sense of urgency in jumping on this. Like, this is my new project. This is my new creative endeavor. And I would say probably as we started to record, and I couldn't tell you, I don't know if it's reflected if I was to watch the fourth or fifth episode, but what would happen was, we essentially finish our recordings and you move on with, usually it's our Tuesdays. And I would find myself going, oh, this feels like kind of therapeutic, and again, I always go back to the idea of, to me, the charm of this reminds me of when I would be the pushing the stroller days. I was still in LA, going to a park in downtown LA, which was actually a very small community for parents. That was just an area that was not the typical LA suburban-esque area like Burbank or whatever, the beach areas, right? If you were in downtown LA with the kid, you were like, oh yeah, you're in it too, brother, cool. And just the natural kind of chit chat you'd have with a fellow dad, just because, like, hey, we're in it right now, like literally with a 2-year old, and oh my God, like, these were the ultimate quote long days, and this felt like a resurgence of that, because as you start to move into any kind of daycare to school era, that's when you're kind of like basically shoveling the kid off on someone else, and the inner, there's something about like we're in the trenches, sharing stories and notes and stuff, and that's something that I really loved about those park days, and I feel like that's what happens in this podcast. And what's funny is like about the kids but not with the kids, you know. So that to me is like, it just takes me back to that really interesting time. Something too, like things you don't exactly anticipate about fatherhood that you're like, oh yeah, that's part of it. Because I remember, do you remember, let me ask you this, I'm gonna ask you this, I've set it up. You remember that era, the moment in time when people are like, "Oh, Neil's going to be a dad," and then dads would come up to you. Now, they maybe you knew them. I had people who were like in a work environment, who were kind of in passing, who would come up to me and basically give me unsolicited advice. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, I think so. And now I find myself doing it, and it's kind of nice. I mean,
Yeah,
like I was trying to think about, like why. I think about a lot. Like, is this are we doing anything with this? Like, is this worthwhile to people? And I think my answer is yes. I think it's a small subset of people, but I think that still counts, and I think it is interesting to me that we are the most involved generation of dads in the history of fatherhood. That is a stat. I didn't make that up. That was verified also by renowned author and world's greatest dad guest, Augustine Sedgwick. It's just a fact. And I think about, well, why is that, right? Like, why weren't our parents' generations, those dads seeking out fatherly advice or dad hangs. I think there were men's groups. Certainly you look to Fred Flintstone, they were all bowling together, but it wasn't about like, hey, how do we commiserate
but
and
you would almost like not. I mean, I felt like that was almost like, let's let loose and be men who don't have families. And maybe I'm projecting that idea, but
no,
I
I,
yeah.
I I think it's fair, and I think it's funny. I mean, I'll hang out with groups of dads, whether it's for like movies or poker or just whatever, drinks, hangs, and half the time we end up talking about our kids. I mean, it's really funny. And now our kids are like in second grade, so it's not like they're like babies.
Hmm.
I think we derive a lot of meaning from being parents. It's
Yes.
hard to make it like it's our only identity, but I do think it's the most important identity I will ever have. And I don't say that just because I'm on this podcast. I think it's true. I think, you know,
Hmm.
why are we doing this? Because one day, I will be gone, and God willing, there will be two people who say, who the only thing they care about is how I treated them, what I taught them, what I meant to them. No matter what else I do, no matter what other successes or failures I have in my life,
Hmm.
that is their model. And so I think like, and why is that, right? Why is our generation so concerned with that? I think it's because, honestly, because of equality, because of the feminist movement. If I'm going to get a little bit political, I think as women went into the workforce, men
Hmm.
had to step up in two parent, male female households, right?
Hmm.
And I
Or
think
there
we
was an opportunity too. You know what I mean? If you think about it, like
absolutely,
when
absolutely,
women were, let's be honest, were allowed, when it was acceptable, when
yeah,
women could get jobs, all of a sudden you're like, well, who's going to make the more money? And then it's like, well, okay. You know what I mean? Like, totally
yeah.
cool.
And if I'm being honest, we're not quite there. We haven't achieved
No.
utopia and full equality. And I'll
Are
also
you
say,
sure? Hold on, let me check. No, no, you're right. It's weird.
it's
America 2026 is not a utopia.
yeah,
Damn it, we were
yeah, no
close.
kidding. There's also still a class divide, right? In these kind of two income, earning households. Like it's not as if everything is, as you say, sunshine and rainbows. To quote, I think a Philadelphian fictional character.
One
Never
of
seen
my
that one
favorites.
either.
One of my
Never seen
favorites.
it. And I think like, I think what a beautiful thing that like the reason dads of this generation are more involved is because we had to be, and because equality is
Yeah.
not here, but we're trending towards it, hopefully. And I think hopefully there is work to do, right? I think the trad wife movement myth, kind of poison, if you will, would like to go back to that time of male parent kind of being just the breadwinner, absentee. What
Well,
ends up happening? Yeah, go ahead.
if you want to unpack something there, and Lord knows, like anyone can hijack any kind of observation and then twist it into really their soapbox. You know what I mean? That's sadly the era we're in. But I will say this, like, it's kind of funny how some of the trad wife stuff's like, you know, I almost think to a degree, one way of looking at that is as a society, we kind of judge other people by going, I'll get this question. Maybe I'm just sensitive to it, but it'll be this question, Neil. What do you do? And now that applies to women in greater frequency now than, say, 40 years ago, right? And, when some people say man or woman, male, female, I'm not trying to be only binary, but, we can explore it for a minute. When you say like, I'll say it too. Like I feel like I have become far more of a at-home dad, not in an ideal setting, but just in reality of scheduling and whatever, just what it is. That you may perhaps male or female, you feel like, oh, well, I wish I was one who was so busy I couldn't pick up my kid because I got to go make that money. Because I think, we tend to look up at people who are like, oh yeah, he's balling. He makes a lot of money. And that's just something I think that's kind of worth noting. And then I would say that's a thing with this podcast. It's kind of like we talk to dads and, yeah, people do all kinds of stuff, but how meaningful it is for a job that you actually don't receive a regular paycheck for, and that to me is a little profound right there too. Am I a socialist, Neil?
Well,
Even
now
if
you know how women have felt for thousands of years, I think, right? I think that the whole caregiving job, it is a job that is not respected by society, not respected by, capitalists. Um, and I think it's so funny. I saw this thing, speaking of Mr. Bezos, I saw this, I guess, ad for working at Amazon, and it's like, we give up to 20 weeks of parental leave. And then you look at the fine print, and it's like, 16 weeks for birthing parents plus a possible additional 4 weeks, and they were like for non-birthing parents 6 weeks, and like, by the way, they disabled comments so no one could shit on what a terrible fucking deal that is. Or like, hey, I think in other countries actually they give like 6 months or a year for
oh,
parents,
yeah.
like, so no comments are allowed, which is just hilarious. And it's just like this little ad of like, it's like a guy working at Amazon with his kid, and it's like, yeah, I got 6 weeks to spend time. Like, that is not enough time. And like, I get it. You're a capitalist, evil person, Jeff Bezos, and all your, executives and stuff, and that's fine. But then like the gall to try to spin it as like some perk, it's just like, get out of here. 6 weeks, get the heck out of here.
Apparently the ice bonus is BS too, Neil. Just a heads
Come
up.
on. They
Yeah,
wouldn't lie. Christy Noem and Donald J. Trump, they
yeah,
wouldn't lie to us. They
yeah.
love us.
You'll get your 50K over the course of
Yeah.
like 15 years if you're
Oh,
not
hey
turned on. 50K.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
turned on.
we said we wouldn't get political. Did we say that? I don't know if we ever said that.
Yeah. Well, we really did when I brought
Let me ask
up
you
the
a
ice
question.
thing.
Do you
Oh,
think
well.
parenting? Do you think parenting is political, Ollie?
I mean, it can be because ultimately who you are parenting will become a person who will develop, complex thoughts and ideas, it's funny, you go back to the Wonder Years and it was, damn, I mean, obviously politics were a huge part of that. It's funny. I feel like part of this is about looking back. I'm gonna really work the Wonder Years thing. This is how we'll like, turn this into great social media clips. Is like, what an interesting exploration because that whole family had really graduated into mini adult status, right? Like Kevin was the quote baby, but he was essentially entering adolescence, right? Entering middle school, junior high. Are you middle school or are you team middle school or team junior high? What do you call it?
Middle school for me, sir.
Yeah, I feel like I've been indoctrinated into middle school, but I grew up with junior high, and I'd like to credit Degrassi Junior High. A fantastic
Why are
series.
you basing it on Canada? Come on, stay American. This is America. This is America.
God, I
All
just
America.
at a young age, I thought it was cooler to say "I'm sorry" than "sorry." That's all sorry. So there you go. There. Yeah, the train has come off the tracks. I forgot what I was talking about, but Degrassi is a great series. Oh, that's right, Wonder Years. So, yeah, you were asking about political, like, yeah, I think like it all roads lead to that. I think something profound to think about, World's Greatest Dad, is that for most, hopefully, quote, God willing, it's always weird for me to say stuff like that. I'll have to get over that when I run for political office. But God willing, most of our time with our kids will be with them when they're adults. Isn't that trippy? But, when you think about World's Greatest Dad, and I think also something so part of the quote sense of urgency with doing this is us seizing the moment, because that's the one thing they tell you, and it is true, is like, man, like when they are little people, you'll be thinking about these years forever. And I think maybe that is something just ultimately magical about life itself, is that something like so small, so adorable will then is just for a moment in time, and that to me is maybe the ultimate magic of it. It's probably something that's helped me kind of understand and accept life itself, is that the great moments are just that, they're just great moments, and life constantly is changing and evolving, and if you're here, you're here, and hopefully you have a good long healthy ride, but yeah, I don't know, it's given me wisdom and perspective and appreciation just in this last year of taking the time to talk to other dads. And then it's kind of funny, like you want to sit there and say, oh, I'm sitting here in front of a computer talking to you 2,000 miles away about being a dad when I literally have a kid in the other room. But it is funny, I think, like you do need some time to kind of like absorb it all and then take action, so this is almost like a huddle up, you know what I mean? The game's being played, we just took a quick time out,
Yeah.
and coach is just like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna push triangle offense. Kneel, cover your man, get in his face. I don't care if the ref whistles at you.
This is very confusing to me, but not a sportsman. But I know I
You're
think that's
welcome.
fair. I think that's a real funny part of it is you know it takes a village. Someone once said. Someone who almost took us from this hellish nightmare wrote a book called "It Takes a Village to Raise a Child," is I believe the quote. And I think there's this meme going around about like everybody wants a village, but nobody wants to be a villager, which I think speaks to the selfishness of American, values, certainly modern American values. And I think part of being a good dad is realizing it's not an inherent talent, it's a practice, right? And so
Mm,
I hear your sports analogy, but I think it's not as if you could just like set it and forget it. Yeah, go to the gym. And I think that's fair. I think our conversations are, the training ground, the unpacking, the watching game tape, the talking about a tough conversation we had with our kids, or when we blew up and we didn't mean to, or how we could have
yeah,
handled something differently. And I think this whole idea is like, yes, the show is called World's Greatest Dads, but we're not saying we're the world's greatest dads. We're trying to be. I think it's kind of like, America, it's an idea. It's a goal. I think if we're striving to be the world's greatest dads, maybe one day we'll be pretty good. And hopefully, I know we ask our guests a lot, how do you want your kids to talk about you when you're older? And I think that's kind of it, right? Like the goal is you want your kid to be like, ah, he was the greatest. But that doesn't just happen. And I think it's so interesting the way you were talking about when your kids were really little. I think we've all known those guys, those dads who are just like, they don't do anything. Babies don't do anything, you know. I'll wait until they can like walk and talk and play
Oh
football
yeah.
and this, and, you know. And you're like, I understand that. I understand the idea that like, what do you do with this human being that
Hmm.
essentially is just kind of a eating, sleeping, pooping machine, crying machine,
Hmm.
right? Um, but I think that part of being a parent is learning how even that is meaningful. And then, like you said, it's gone. It's over. You know, we haven't bought a diaper in 3 years, 4 years. Like
Yeah.
and I probably never will again. You know, except for maybe myself if something happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah. At
Yeah,
least we have that to look forward to.
yeah, but they'll be bigger. And I guess I always think about those dads because it's such a trope. Because I don't think those guys wake up one day and all of a sudden their kids are playing, pee wee football and they're amazing dads. It's full time, constant from day one, you know? And I'll be honest, I don't know that I had it all figured out. I don't know if I have it all figured out now, but I do think, I have a little bit more wisdom than I did 8 years ago, and I hope to be even more wise. And I think it would be a really beautiful thing if, God willing, I'm with my adult children one day and they're teaching me stuff still. Like, I don't want to be that guy in my 60s, 70s going, let me tell you how it is, because then what's the point? I'm not Gandalf. I'm not ready to go. I want to always be learning, and I think the idea that like we can learn from our kids is like a really beautiful thing. I'm not going to learn geometry from them, or long division, or I might learn some science stuff because I'm pretty bad at science. But like, I think what I can learn from them is about how to regulate myself, what is important to me, how to, be in the moment, how to prioritize, get off my phone. Um, and like, I guess the stuff that matters, I was saying to someone the other day, have we talked about this? Do you know they've done studies like on whether or not having children makes you happier? What do you think? Does having kids make you happier?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the ultimate crazy question because, you know, y there is so much that I have gotten from just having this opportunity to really kind of look around on a personal level and kind of go, okay, this is great or this sucks. But then you're like, but it's not everything because I have a family, right? Now, that's not to say that like that other thing doesn't make me happy or doesn't make me angry or sad or whatever, but it does give you perspective. And I think that if you don't have that, there are other things in life that can give you perspective. This is going to sound ridiculous, but people have deep affection and love and ultimately selflessness towards pets. You know what I mean? And that may not seem like the same thing. Pets are not as complex thinking, living organisms. But I think the underlying idea of like, is there something more than just me, my immediate needs? Like, what is it that you can do and exist and actually love something else? You know what I mean? Really love something else. And it is a living thing. Like I think that does add another dimension too. And I'm grateful to have experienced that. And yeah, like I just I don't know if part of it is I'm wrestling like this idea, and I think this is true with a lot of people of like life and career, right? Like life is, your career is certainly part of your life, but life is more than your career, right? So life means a partner, life means having a family, life means friendships, life means love, right? All this stuff, gained or lost, right? And then there's the career thing, which can give you joy and terror and anxiety and disappointment, all those real emotions as well. But I find myself kind of leaning on going, at least I don't have to worry too much about how some things go. Like, you have control with love to a degree. You know what I mean? And I'm quite grateful for that. And it's not easy. Like, I sat here at this desk getting that famous TV phone call when they're like, we're not going to keep going with the TV series. And I remember sitting there processing it, knowing this day was going to come, knowing that it's fine. I've said it before. And I was like, it's okay. It's not important. My family's important. These are the things you're supposed to say and think about, right? Even if you don't go, oh, it's all good. Shot of adrenaline and dopamine, I'm fine again. But they do become those anchors because, when you have someone who loves you back, and I'll even say it, even something, if you have some living entity that loves you back, at least it gets you out of your damn head. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I think it helps, not let me go insane and go, what is this existence? You know what I mean? Why am I alive right now? I can't take it anymore. You know what I mean? That's pretty much it. Like it's a really wonderful thing to have a thing you love, a person that you love, um, to just really keep your sanity. To get
All
out.
right. So that was a beautiful monologue. So kids don't make you happier, the science shows. Um, but having kids does give your life more meaning, according to the research. Pew, 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 pew. So,
I thought I was wrong. Scratch that
yeah,
entire thing.
you're fucking wrong. No, no, I hear what you're saying. And by the way, I think that's kind of what you were saying. But no, it is funny. Like there have been studies that said having children doesn't make you happier, but it can give your life more meaning. That's what they report. This is social scientists, not me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You know what? I can. Wait. So it says it doesn't make you happier, but it can give your life more meaning. I would say this. Here's my version. I think it can make you happier, and odds are it can give your life more meaning. There's no locks. There's no guarantee. You could have a crappy kid. You could be a crappy parent. How about that? How about them
Yeah,
apples?
these are just like stats, like in the aggregate. This is like they're talking about like 1,000 people polled, not like this isn't the difference between evidence or numbers based evidence and anecdotal evidence, right? Like anytime you're arguing with someone on Facebook or something, they're just like, oh well, I know this guy who blah blah, and it's like yeah, that's literally just a guy you know. Like I'm talking about freaking research, but don't get me started on that. So, what have you learned about being a dad in the last year?
Oh, you ready for another monologue? What have I learned about being a dad? You know what? It's weird, but it literally comes down to big plug Substack, Monday Musings. Check out our Substack for the one person who's listening who's probably already well aware of our Substack. But I think journaling is actually a really good way to kind of process all this stuff. I think you really, you can be so caught up in like, oh, I got to pick him up. We got to do this. We have to make dinner. I have to do this work thing. You're so constantly like, abiding to a schedule, making sure you're actually on top of it, or at least not running behind, that you're not really kind of stopping. And it's not even to smell the roses, but actually, can you stop, take a pause, and go, how could we do this better? And I think doing a little bit of the journaling and like talking to other dads, certainly talking to people that are more analytical about all this stuff, helps me kind of go, how can I connect with my kid a little bit better? Doing the whole screen. I mean, this is something I literally did a couple days ago. I was like, I'm gonna sit there in the car, and our routine when I pick up Heath after school is, he has a phone, but he can't use it. So as soon as I pick him up, he fires that thing up and he looks at it. Now there's two ways we could go, Neil. I could be like, put that thing away. We're going to have a meaningful conversation for just 20 minutes. Or I like to do a little soft diplomacy. You know what I mean? I don't run the Department of War, and I'm not going to take Greenland. So I preferred soft diplomacy. So I kind of John Kerry'd it. I don't really know a lot about John Kerry, but this is what I did. I said, I just started dropping in little questions here and there. And some of it was like, hey, what are you watching? Some of it was like, the classic, how was your day? What'd you have for lunch? And then here and there, and I think I brought this up in the Monday Musing about screen time, was like, there are times where the conversation wins. You know what I mean? And and there you go. And I think it's just like how. And I looked at that going, I'm not gonna just wholesale change his behavior, but I can certainly try. Try and break through the force field of screen time. So, I think what I've learned is how can I just be a little bit better in little moments.
Love it. We've talked about a lot of different types of things here, and I think that's what's, by the way, that is maybe one of my favorite parts of doing this, in addition to just getting to spend time with you virtually, Ollie.
Getting me to put on a tuxedo for no reason at 11 in the morning.
What if I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not recording. This is just for me. This is for my personal stash.
You see my real bow tie, by the way? I keep having to fluff it because it's real. It sinks.
Yeah, mine is not. Mine is a clip-on. What I love about this show is, when we've talked about this, like where it's about everything that being a dad intersects with, and that is music, movies, food, friendship, marriage, cars, I don't know, literally all of life, because it's part of our, identity, and like, it's relational. It's like, and it's like I said, it never stops. Sure, legally we're not responsible for these kids anymore when they're 18, but like, we know how that's going to go. Oh, I got to stay in
saw
there.
the Dahmer show. You saw Dahmer on Netflix. Like, it's still, if you see Dahmer on Netflix.
No, why are you talking about Dahmer? Jesus, Ollie.
Big scene with the dad. They're like, listen, your son Jeffrey, he did a very bad thing.
That's where we're going with this. Yeah, okay. Sure, let's talk about being, the world
Jeffrey Dahmer had a dad.
Yeah.
Score episode 50.
Maybe this is
Dahmer's dad.
I don't know.
Is he alive? Can we get Dahmer's dad on?
Sure, I'll reach out. So we've talked about things like emotional availability, apologizing to your kids. We talk a lot about masculinity, what it means, what it is, what it should be. We talk about, like I said, friendship, boundaries, being present is a theme that comes up a lot. Presence over perfection is something that a lot of our guests say. We talk a lot about empathy, kindness, modeling these things for your kids, being curious. I'm curious, what are some things that maybe we haven't talked about that maybe in year 2 you feel like we got to start digging into?
Wow. You know what? You realize you're recording this, you don't edit anything, and you throw me this super, super proper question. But I think what's interesting is when we started this, it was so much like, oh my God, my kid is literally Kevin Arnold, Wonder Years, in middle school. I feel like your kids are constantly 5 and 7, but now they're 6 and 8, or definitely Cece's
5 and 8, because Cece's
5 and 8,
2.5 years older. So yeah.
Okay, all right. So I guess Zeke is just going to stay 5. Great, love it, cool. Benjamin Button 5.
Yeah, I mean they don't have the same birthday. You know how that works, right? Like they have different.
I know, but it's just it's been a stretch. She's turned 8. You know what I mean? Like he's due to be 6.
4. He was 4 when we started this. Can you believe it?
God, I just feel like he was 5. Or you should double check the numbers.
Okay.
If you have to go to the city hall, let me know. But I think what's kind of interesting is, and this has happened when we've met other dads who are like, oh yeah, my kid's like 34, or I'm a grandparent, and almost a grandparent. It's like, oh cool, like what is that kind of? I feel like there's some new middle years, okay, and I'm kind of curious about that. Like I would love to focus on people as I brace for crap. My kid's in college, and how that first taste of quote empty nest, if you will. When we had Greg Scheinman on, he did a post about how he was like, guess what? me and mom are kind of come and visit because your brother's visiting you. And I absolutely, like, my heart melted for that because I was like, heck yeah, the party's not over. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, and that's it, they're gone. It's like, no, you can still be a part of their lives. I remember the parents who showed up to a college party here and there. And although I'm almost into 2 months of now dry February, I'm like, I can still be social and hang out. But I would be really curious to kind of honestly, why not think about what for me the road that's ahead, which is how do I best prepare for college? How do I maintain a relationship when distance becomes a factor? I think that'd be something really interesting. Here comes a big toolkit. We're gonna make some money. You know what? I'd like to do that. I'd like to explore making tons of money, just squeezing dollars out of this lemon. Oh, did I call our podcast a lemon? I did. I'm on a roll.
Lemon is a useful ingredient for things. I think lemons
Facts.
get a bad rap. Well, thanks for sharing that, Ollie. I'll make note as we plan out the rest of this year. Some good
Shout out to the
food.
college dads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Also, like, what does college cost now? Like $500,000 a day? I mean, it can't be.
That's true. What am I saying? And my kid's gonna be at University of Phoenix. It's not gonna be a problem.
I always tell my kids there's no shame in being a server and just auditioning. Hey.
I mean, it's I how were your parents? I mean, you went to an elite school. Now it's just Ali Neal time. But I think there's something to be said if we're gonna tiptoe into year two and like talking to the
Yeah.
college dads. I think it'd be curious to unpack
Sure.
the old school expectations of college. You went to Tufts, which is that's a prestigious school.
It
That is a
well,
name brand school.
school that if you didn't get into Harvard, that's where you went.
Yeah, which is, I
But
mean,
but I but that was the generation before I got there. I'll say, like, by the time I got there, it was my reach school. But the rap on Tufts prior, I would say like the 10, 20 years prior, was like it was for the Harvard rejects. It was in that area. But
it's
yes,
literally a compliment. That's literally a
for
compliment.
us, for idiots like us. But not for the people who were like, I'm gonna go to Harvard like my father and my grandfather and my great granddaddy, Reginald.
Those are the
Reginald.
people that don't need college degrees because they already have their lives lived out to
Yeah, but
them.
it's important to them.
Sure.
Anyways, when I went, so here's what happened. And talk about dads. My dad always said, I'll pay for whatever school you want to go to that you can get into, the best school you can get into. Well,
Yep.
that was the best school I can get into. I applied early decision. I also got like a half ride to Tulane, and both of those things kind of arrived at the same time. And my dad said, you don't have to go to Tufts. And I was like,
Uh,
but I applied early. It's binding. And he goes, not legally.
dude, where did your dad go to school?
So, great segue. My father went to Colgate University,
Yeah.
also a private college.
Yeah.
Also was a big deal that my grandparents sent him to a private university. But you want to know what the tuition was when he went in the
Right.
70s? It was like $2,500 a year.
Wow.
It was a big
So
deal. When I went to Tufts, I want to say it was between 40 and
25.
$45,000 a year. A
Wow.
lot of money, a lot of money.
Uh,
What do you think it is now? Let's Google this bad boy.
God, that's frightening that it's 40. It was 40 when you went? Are
That's
you
right.
including dorm rooms?
Yeah. All in, all in.
Oh, no. Let's just talk tuition.
Tuition? All right. So
Yeah.
I went in
40,
2003.
50.
So
You
in
were probably
2000,
living a certain lifestyle,
okay,
Pat.
in 2003, it was $38,270.
Wow.
And yeah,
30.
2026. What do we got? Uh, oh yeah, it's $71,982.
For tuition.
That's right. That's right. That's the base tuition. If you're paying full price, baby.
Oh my God. That's Tufts.
That's Tufts. Anyways,
mean,
let's get off this and let's get on some other stuff. Hey, we've had a
all
lot of
right.
great guests. We've had almost 50 dads. By the time this airs, we're close, right? Um,
Yeah.
who are some of the memorable dads we've spoken to? Who are some of your faves? Like, what have you learned? I mean, just
Jesus.
cherry pick a few. They're not
It
listening.
it
Who
took
cares?
this long to get to this part. This was like the most important part. I was talking about the Wonder Years and how much your dad paid for college. Classic World's Greatest Dad. The World's Greatest Dad is like my dad is talking about I don't know what the hell right now. That's what World's Greatest Dad is. Um, it's weird. I guess like I'm kind of biased, but we just had that episode air, but it was really great talking to Jeff because I've known him for so long. I've known him before he had a dad, and then to catch up with him, like it's uncanny to me, like
I
how.
think you had a Freudian slip there. You knew him before he had a kid.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, before. Yeah, I knew him after he had his dad passed. But like yeah, you're right. I knew him before he had his son, and obviously now his dude. You know what's crazy is he's not, his kid's not that much older than he, but at the same time you're like, this is why I'm like things about to go warp speed. So it just trips me out that that kid is as big as he is and also like about to go to college. But Jeff was one. It's so weird. Like you got me under the gun. And I want to stop flapping my gums. Grill Dads was great too, just because I thought I knew who they were and I didn't. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's really cool. And it's so weird. Like, no. I'm trying to think. It's so weird. The things that obviously pop into mind are some of the kind of the food related TV talent people.
Yeah.
But I'm diving into, I'm gonna mess up the names.
Okay.
But I would say broadly speaking, who was the name? Have we released the episode? The guy, he's the actor in L.A. Who he oh god, he was born with HIV
Yeah,
and
Joseph Kibler. Yeah, he was great. Yeah,
Gimbler, like just
Kibler. Yeah,
Gimbler. Gimbal.
Kibler.
That's a filming device. Kibler. Fascinating. What I
Yeah,
loved about him was like, my God, we all come from. They're just dads of different stripes, which
well,
I thought was really
I
amazing.
realize I put you on the spot here, and because I'm thinking I'm racking my own brain, and I'm like, I literally have enjoyed every single one we've done for different reasons,
Hmm.
and I think like I'm trying to think like they're so different. We've had like Bobby Maximus, who's like a UFC fighter. We had Brian Stelter, who's a CNN journalist. We've
Hmm.
had the Grill Dads. We've had so many food personalities. We've had Substackers. We've had dads who started fatherhood film festivals. I mean, like authors. And I think like the one through line with all of them, different professions, different outlooks, different demeanors. Some dads kind of come on here and they're just like, let me tell you what it's like. And some are like, I'm really trying to figure it out, like, but I think the main consistent thing is every single dad we talk to is trying to be the world's greatest dad.
I
And
feel
that,
like they all will instantly zap. I'm totally pulling up the list right now.
okay.
Um, I feel like a lot of them. What's interesting is you can talk to a dad whose kids, who's older. The kids are just way older, but they're right back in that moment that you share of like, well, when my kid was 3.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing how you can look at someone visually and
Yeah.
they're like, dude, who is this dude? You know what I mean? He looks as different from me as a freaking apple to freaking broccoli. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden I can talk to someone and be like, oh, he's 14. And it's like we are right there. Like the
Yeah.
bond, the familiarity, when it crosses, certainly the easiest way is by age is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And honestly too, some of it is like the way we can become dads now. Not everything is biologic, like the traditional like
Sure.
trad dad. trad dad, my wife gave birth. You know what I mean? And that really isn't a prerequisite the way one would think. That's just one way that's certainly been quite common for a long, long time. But
Yeah.
it's not the whole package, the whole picture of it.
Yep. Absolutely. Um, so who was your favorite? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no, I'm looking.
that's
It
sweet.
was me.
Um,
Talking
well,
like,
look, I mean, I think I want to say a few things, and then I want to get into the stats, some learnings because we do this lightning round, and I was thinking, oh, should we do our own? But I think we'll save that. We'll do our lightning round in episode 100. Okay. Um,
okay.
but I think what's so cool about asking all these different dads the same question is you start to see these patterns, but then you also get to see like their own individuality. And so let me just pull this up right here. um, these were some of the superpowers that the dads we
Oh,
speak to
I
want to
see.
have. These are their superhero powers of choice. Super speed, sure. Flight, who doesn't want to fly? Teleportation, super strength. A lot of dads want to be super strong. Some dads, I was surprised because they're already really strong. Like Eddie Jackson was like, yeah, it's super strength. It's like you have that. Pick something else. Um, Telepathy, totally get that. I'm married. Wish I could read minds. Um, Seeing into the past, and then because we do have a lot of chefs on here and cooks. Some superpowers of choice were three hands,
Whoa,
perfect sear. One dad said he wanted to be a super taster.
interesting.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
should write that name down because if they're not a super taster, I don't trust their cooking.
Uh-oh. You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
got
take
my
our James Beard back. Greatest TV dads of all time. This is a fun question for us pop culture junkies. Um, we had some fun answers. I think a lot of people kind of they're uncomfortable with this one, but some people said Bill Cosby, but we knew they meant Huxtable.
yeah.
We
Cliff Huck, the
knew
ant,
it.
it's Cliff Huxtable, and that's fine. I mean, we have to be able to separate characters from, you know,
Yeah.
some
Well,
crazy
that's a whole
parties
other
in the '60s to the
that's a whole
'90s.
other episode. No, so greatest TV dads of all time. These were the answers: Cliff Huxtable, Dr. Seaver from Growing Pains, Ward Cleaver, Alex P. Keaton's dad,
Yeah.
Homer Simpson, Bandit from Bluey, Phil Dunphy from Modern Family, Tony Soprano.
Dude, I don't know. Like that was Jeff Moore at his finest, going like, he was a murderer. I mean, like I didn't murder his. Yo,
Didn't
you know
murder
what?
his kids. Didn't
Terrible,
murder his
Dad. No, but he murdered his freaking nephew.
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
You didn't watch season. Oh,
It's on me.
sorry. It's
The
on you.
dad from Good Times, don't know his no name provided, and Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
That's a great. You know what? Even though, in some ways, he was. I don't want to say just another capitalist, because let's be fair.
Uncle
To reach.
Phil?
Yeah, he
He was a
wasn't. I mean,
judge. How did he have all that money as a judge? Did they ever explain?
yeah. Well, I mean, look, we have to soft eyes here. I think it was a win for any to show
Well,
and to show
was
successful
that
black
judge
families on television is a win, right?
was that
Because
judge taking like dirty money? How does a judge live in Bel Air?
actually, you know what's weird? Well, you know what? Let's be honest too. Here's another way of looking at it. Although the butler doesn't help my argument,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it could be a thing where it all was cheaper before. I mean, and you've certainly seen this with New York, like how it's just like even more expensive now. You would have said 10 years ago, how could anyone buy in New York? How insane is it now, right? Within
Yeah.
those 10 years, right?
But Bel Air, I mean, you think about Father of the Bride, like that was a big deal even then. All right,
I'm
well,
just
we'll unpack that on another episode. Um, Here are some of
Is
the
Uncle
favorite.
Phil? Oh my God! Should we do a fictitious? Let's do some deep dives with fictitious dads.
Yeah,
Was Uncle Phil dirty because he was still just a judge? I would have bought it if he was a lawyer, and he was like, working for Big Tobacco or representing Blackwater. You know what I mean? He
What?
probably.
That could be a feasible backstory, actually, that he was a big corporate attorney that then became a judge.
But how would he get nominated to? Well, let's be honest, it's all political.
All right,
Good point. Maybe we don't know much about the legal system.
here are some of the. Oh, well, that's for sure. I watch Suits, so I know a little bit. Here are some of the favorite movies and TV shows that the dads like to watch with their kids. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Moana, Despicable Me, The Lego Movie, Teen Titans Go, Indiana Jones, Ninja Turtles, Space Jam, the Michael Jordan version, of course, Home Alone, How It's Made, Dunkirk, and Dune.
Dunkirk. I remember. I love that you brought this up because I remember this is all in Jeff's episode, and I was like, it was so heavy. I was like, yeah, he loves. But I mean, I get it because Heath loves All Quiet on the Western Front, and I'm very proud of that choice. But in a broad perspective, you're like, hey, son, let's watch that movie where everyone dies in World War One, and they were Germans. I know that's not a. You're not really. I don't think you're a fan of anything German in World War II. Is that fair to say, Neil?
I don't know. I think they make good cars, I guess, right?
Is that anti-Semitic?
Probably. What isn't? These were the favorite books to read with your kids. A bunch of dads, we asked a bunch of dads, what is your favorite book to read with your kids? And these are what the world's greatest dads had to say. Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, Calvin and Hobbes, Where the Sidewalk Ends, Bathe the Cat, The Bible, Eating the Alphabet, and Matilda.
That there's room for the Bible too. It all can't. Let's be honest. Like I'll say it. Goodnight Moon, weak book. I'm not afraid to say it. Really loved it. She loved it. She was like really impassioned, and I was just like, I was more of a pokey little puppy guy. Little thing got into the chocolate pudding. Actually, how did the pokey little puppy survive? Because if you eat chocolate pudding, chocolate's poisonous to dogs. Maybe we'll have some dog dads on. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. We asked the world's greatest dads, what is one book every dad should read? Here's what they said. Good Inside, Hold On to Your Kids, Bringing Up Bebe, How to Do Nothing, Crossing to Safety, Patrimony, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.
Who said that?
The girl dads.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Project Hail Mary.
I've just recently become a reader, but I can also tell you this. I have no plans on reading any books about fatherhood. Maybe I should. Maybe I should find myself a book about how to prepare for the empty nest. I think that's might be a good read. After I finish Heat 2, which is awesome.
Oh, good to know. These were the best ultimate dad snacks, according to the world's greatest dads. Peanut butter M&Ms, perfect bars, corn nuts, pretzels, oatmeal pies, Pringles with American cheese melted in the microwave, barbecue trimmings, and, this is a wild card, gin martini with a lemon twist.
Wow. I mean, it's classy. I like that. I mean,
Something you might enjoy in a tuxedo.
yeah. Oh, I have a really nice bottle of gin sitting in my. God, it's funny when you don't drink, all of a sudden the alcohol just piles up. Like I have, yeah, it's just sitting there. It's crazy.
We asked some of our world's greatest dads, if your kids started a band, what would it be called? And do you know what my favorite answer was?
No, I don't even remember the question.
Tommy Avalone said, well, it's their band, so shouldn't they name it? And I was like, drop the mic. What a beautiful answer.
You know, it's funny. I get Tommy and Sandy crossed a bit, and I will say this: one of the wonderful byproducts of this has been, and this is all you. I tip my cap to Neil, raise the glass to Neil for helping remind me like to be able to connect with more creatives because I feel like I got so sucked into the singular food world, you know what I mean? And it's just cool. Like I'm obviously Sandy stand-up comic as a dad, which is literally its own, that's its own joke. A punchline. Joke sounds mean. Punchline in and of itself. And Tommy's fascinating. And also, back to the food thing, I love that he loves Fuddruckers. Like, that is amazing to me. You know? Just like, and a family restaurant. I imagine he had good times with his dad there, deciding how many slices of tomatoes you can put on your burger with no penalty because it's unlimited.
Well, Ali Khan, before we depart, I want to say thank you to our. We joke we do have more than one listener, and we want to thank you for listening or watching or just consuming these clips on social media. What just like thanks for paying attention to us and thanks for being on this journey with us. And if you wanted this to be the final episode, I do have bad news for you. We will be continuing this podcast on a weekly basis. So if that's the case and you hate it, I'm very sorry. But also, why are you listening? Then just go find a different outlet. Go listen to something else. But if you do enjoy it, we will be here for you and continue to interview other dads and talk to each other about different fatherhood topics that come up. And here's what I want to say is DM us, hit us up, like on Instagram, on our Substack. We want to hear from you. We want to know who you think we should interview. We want to know what you think we should talk about. And we want to hear your feedback. I mean, don't be too mean, like don't troll us, but like we can take it. We like feedback. We're dads. That's kind of what we do. And thanks for coming along. And congratulations on 52 episodes, Ali.
You know what? I also want to do this. I want to give a shout out to my dad, who would have turned 90 today. Today is his birthday.
Happy birthday, Dr. Khan.
Happy birthday, Dad.